What's up everyone? In this video I'm going to be going over building a farmer and why this should be your first 6-star. After that I'm going to briefly touch on how a speed farmer ties into being able to summon efficiently and how to do that. Real quick, there's two terms you'll need to know that I'm going to be using during this video. The first is farmer. This is a champion that can solo the campaign levels and therefore carry 3 food champions to a victory. The second term is food champion. This is a weak or useless champion that you're simply leveling up for the purpose of ranking up another champion. These food champions will not have any gear and will therefore be useless. Starting out, there's basically two types of farming champions out there. I'm going to call these two types Vamp Farmers and Speed Farmers. Vamp Farmers are the easiest to obtain. Your first farmer will most likely be your starting champion, and this will be a Vamp Farmer. So what is a Vamp or Vampiric Farmer? Vamp Farmers use a 4-piece Vampiric set to lifesteal health back off their damage. This will allow them to farm and solo the campaign, even without highly specialized gear. The second and superior type of farmer is what I'm going to call a speed farmer. Unlike a vamp farmer, speed farmers do not use lifesteal gear. The reason for this is that they will one-shot the enemies without ever getting hit themselves. This allows them to farm much more quickly than a vamp farmer, with the trade-off that they will require specialized gear and masteries to accomplish this. So which champions make good farmers? Well, the first champion you're going to have available to become a farmer is your starting character. Although I prefer Kayle, any of the 4 starters can become a vamp farmer and farm the last stages of Brutal at 6-star with a vamp set. In this clip, you can see my Kayle, who's only 5-star, wearing the daily login gear that's not even fully leveled up, farming zone 6 on Brutal. If I was to level him up to 6-star and rank his gear up to max level, he would be able to push into the later zones of Brutal with ease. Personally, I was fortunate enough to get some legendary pulls that made better farmers, so this is why I never bothered to level Kayle up further. However, for most players, their starter will be their first farmer. I'm not going to go over every champion that can be a vamp farmer because quite frankly, almost any champion with a powerful AoE attack on a relatively short cooldown can be a vamp farmer. Moving on to speed farmers, the part that the majority of this video will focus on, I will start by going over what makes a speed farmer viable. To start with, a speed farmer must be able to clear all 3 phases of a stage without dying. Considering they're not wearing vampiric gear, this means either completely killing all enemies before taking damage, or at least killing the majority of them. Because of this requirement, in order to fulfill this role, the speed farmer must either have multiple AoE attacks, or have some kind of built-in reset on skill that allows them to take out targets in quick succession. I'm going to be going over some of the most commonly used speed farmers, but as usual this list is not exhaustive. There will be champions I'm not mentioning that could be used as a speed farmer. If you have questions about a specific champion, just ask me in the comments below. Starting out with the absolute undeniably best speed farmer in the game, we have Queen Eva. The reason Queen Eva sits at the top is her energy drain skill, which hits all enemies, decreases their turn meters, has an extra 15% crit rate on the skill, which makes her quite a bit easier to gear, and if it kills any targets, it resets the cooldown on this ability, actually all of her abilities. First off, this ability hits like a truck, so it's going to kill things. And because of the reset, she's just going to spam it on the enemies non-stop. She can clear campaign stages in mere seconds. After Queen Eva, we have the Bellower, the champion I personally use for speed farming. The first thing I want to mention is that my Bellower build is not perfect. You would want slightly higher crit rate and crit damage than I have to get 100% perfect results. That said, I got as close as I could, and he does a pretty damn good job at speed farming. The Bellower is probably the most commonly used speed farmer as he's much more easily obtainable than Queen Eva. Even though he's listed as a support champion, all of his attacks are AoE. That, combined with some good gear, will allow him to sweep even the most difficult Brutal stages in seconds. In this same category we have Rey. Rey is a champion boasting extreme damage in all AoE attacks. Although much more rare, she is a more powerful and versatile version of the Bellower. She also wrecks the arena. Bigun is an absolute monstrous speed farmer. Also rare and hard to obtain, he functions similarly to Bellower with the exception he's simply stronger. Those 4 champions sit at the apex of current speed farmers, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones that can be used. Although much slower, the next most commonly used speed farmer is probably the Relic Keeper. Relic Keeper can keep a constant 50% attack boost on himself, and his attack skill resets when he kills a target. This means that although he will be inherently slower than a true AoE character, he can still sweep levels in under 20 seconds. Due to his 50% attack buff, he's also slightly easier to gear than champions like the Bellower. There are other characters that can be used as speed farmers. I'm not going to be going into all of them, but I will list off a couple that I know people like to use. Horden, Lua, Cupidus, and Skullcrown have all been used with success, just to name a few. So how do you gear a speed farmer? Well, for the most part, they all follow a similar build. That is, you first want to get their crit rate as close to 100% as possible. After that, you'll want to stack as much attack percent and crit damage into their kits as possible. This is the recipe to pull off the one-shot attacks. Masteries will also play an important role in this as well, and should emphasize single hit damage and crit damage. For the gloves, chest, and boots, you'll want to either go crit rate gloves or even better, crit damage gloves if you can get close to 100% crit from other sources. And for the chest and boots, you'll want to run attack percent on both of them. So now that we've gone into vamp farmers and even better the speed farmers, why should these be a priority for you? Why should a vamp farmer be your first 6-star? Why should you build a speed farmer when they require so much specialized and valuable gear? Well, for new players establishing their first farmer, a vamp farmer, it is important because it will allow them to reliably level up 3 food champions at a time. This will streamline and make 6-starring their future champions much easier. After you've 6-starred a few champions with your vamp farmer, why should you look into replacing it with a speed farmer? Well, vamp farmers can farm most levels in 30 seconds to 1 minute, whereas speed farmers can farm the same level in mere seconds. This increased efficiency can reduce the grind time to make a 6-star from many hours to even under an hour in some cases. To wrap up the video, I want to briefly touch on using food champions efficiently. This ties in with the importance of being able to level up food quickly that makes speed farmers so valuable, so I'm going to be including it in this video. As you play the game, you're going to have an abundance of green shards. These green shards will produce food champions. I personally only suggest using 2 stars and up, just due to time constraints, simply sacrificing the 1 stars for EXP. However, it is important to use your green shards at a rate where they don't just build up infinitely. It's also very worth it to use 2 stars and not just 3-star champions as food. It's worth noting that pay-to-play players will sometimes circumvent this step and simply use blue shards as food. If you've got the wallet for that, then more power to you. Many of the rare champions you get can also be used for food. So if you're unsure which rare champions are worth keeping, check out my other video that covers the good rare champions. Lastly, before I wrap this video up, I do want to mention that speed farmers are most efficiently used by players that do not have finite energy. This means players that are using at least a little bit of gems to keep their energy topped up. If you're a 100% free-to-play player that is never going to fill up his energy, then most likely you won't need a speed farmer and you can just stick with a vamp farmer. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below.